So last night, actually before last night's Monday Night Raw, reports had come out that basically Vince McMahon was, basically involved in creative. Now I know people are going to say, well, it's not a surprise. But here's what was interesting about the report, and this was from a very reliable source in Fightful Select. They said basically, and I quote, on the Twitter and on the Patreon and their Fightful Select paywall page, they basically said that Vince McMahon's involvement was only in a way that's kind of, how do I put it? He will make changes as he sees fit. In other words, if he doesn't like something, he will change it. Otherwise, it's all Triple H or whoever's in charge for that day. Now, of course, when you're people like Just Alex of Alex's World, JD from Off the Script, Solid Monster from Solid Monster Sounds Off, and Get Better Solid Monster, I know you're getting over something. Or let's say Good Mic Work, Greg Morgan, OTR Central, or whoever, when you hear this, when you come out and hear this, one of the things that first come to your mind is, well, we told you so. We told you Vince was in charge. Triple H is just a figurehead. He's not really calling the shots. It's all Vince McMahon. That is the first thing that will come out. And you know what happens afterwards? And has been happening lately? You know what's been happening? People have been getting on them more than ever, in the fact that they always finger point at Vince McMahon. Even if, I had to get some chocolate milk there, even if the report comes out flat out and says, yeah, he's only involved when he chooses to be, or when he feels something is not up to standard in his opinion. Basically, choosing things at, I would say, will or whenever he likes, but mostly leaving it in Triple H's hands. And yet, again, when people like those I just mentioned hear Vince is involved in any shape or form, of course they're going to basically blame him. They're basically going to put the blame on anything that may not make sense or may not have a story. And as I've said before, for years that Vince has been in charge of creative, alongside John Laurinaitis, Bruce Pritchard, or Kevin Dunn, or whoever, Vince McMahon in recent years, and I can agree with this and attest to it, has made WWE, Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, and on occasion the pay-per-view PLEs, he has made them confusing and downright unwatchable. I will attest to that. I will agree to that. But in the past year almost, we have seen a big turnaround. Has it been perfect? No. It has not been perfect. Has it seemed like it has had, I guess you could say, apparitions of Vince McMahon's fingerprints all over at times? Yes, I will agree with that. But a majority of the time in this past year almost, it's been mostly a 180, where basically it's a lot better, a lot more tolerable, and in a way a lot more sensible than what we've had in the past. But yet, when people, I should say, hear that Vince McMahon might be involved in some shape or form, basically making changes as he sees fit, even if they're the tiniest of changes, they will still get upset. They will still point a finger at Vince as being the reason why some of Monday Night Raw, some of SmackDown, some of NXT, or some of the PLE does not make sense or is bad. They will point to him as being at fault, even if he's only involved for at least, I would say, 15 to 25% of the creative input, especially if a reliable source like Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select comes out and says, hey, we've heard he's only going to be involved when he chooses to be. Basically, he's going to make changes as he sees fit. Now, here's the thing. Again, people wonder and ask, well, why do those that make a living on YouTube and podcasts, financially, why do they come out and they basically blame Vince McMahon? Why is he always the first one to point the finger of blame at? It's like I said, because everything I mentioned earlier, the years that he was in charge with others outside of Triple H, booking Raws, SmackDown, PLE pay-per-views, and making them confusing in stature and if not unwatchable. It's because of those things, because of those incidences, that even if it's clear as day that nowadays he's only going to be in charge, or not in charge, but only involved, I should say, when he sees something that he feels doesn't, maybe in his opinion, fit, make sense, despite the fact that we're in that era right now to where it's mostly all Triple H, people will blame Vince until, as I've mentioned before, they get it across basically the plains of the United States itself. They get it to the offices as Ari Emanuel, the guy that's going to be Vince's boss within a month. They will not stop until Ari Emanuel, when the merge is complete, comes out and says, by the way, one of the people we're letting go to cut back on stuff is Vince McMahon. Vince, it was nice knowing you, but you are hereby unemployed. They are not going to stop until that day comes. And that's the truth. That is the truth. Because why? Because they believe that if Vince McMahon, even if he's not involved that much, even if he's only there, ladies and gentlemen, to make a slight change here and there, the thing is, they do not trust him because, as I've said before, and others have said before, they look at him as the kind of person that he'll get a taste of it, and then over time, he'll want more. He'll want more. And he'll want more. Sorry, I had to finish that off there. But that is why they're upset by even hearing anything about Vince. Anything about Vince. They do not want him near creative whatsoever, because even if he's only putting in, some input here and there, and it's only like 20%, 19%, 15% of input, creatively, they are afraid that he will basically want more. That he gets a taste of it, he's going to want more and more and more and more. It's as I've said before, what is fueling them in their disdain for Vince McMahon, even if he is not fully involved, period. The disdain for him is because of everything I mentioned earlier and the fact that they are afraid. It is fear and paranoia that is basically messing with their minds and making them believe that if Vince McMahon even is allowed just to have a little bit of say in creative, he's going to want more. And they're afraid things are going to go back to the way they were, and they don't want that. And look, I don't blame them. I do not blame them for feeling that way. I really don't. But the thing is, they have to realize that if a majority of the show, even by their standards, is mildly entertaining, if not watchable, then they should be able to accept that as, okay, Vince maybe had a say in this segment or in this match, but everything else is Triple H. As long as they can get 75, 85%, 90% Triple H, running the show, that should be all that matters. That should be all that matters. I mean, it's like when you go and take a test, okay? You go and you take a test, and basically on that test, you are told that the only way you could pass is to get a D- to an A+. That is like saying the only way you can pass is to get a 60% to 100%. And if you get anything in between, that is satisfactory. That is satisfactory. But they don't see it that way. They don't see it because they don't trust Vince McMahon, especially if he gets a taste of creative. They are afraid he's going to want more and more and more. That is a fact. That is a fact that nobody can deny. And like I said, I don't blame them for feeling that way, but as I've said before, they should not let their fear and paranoia get the best of them. What they need to do is be like, you know what? I'm not going to focus on any of that negative stuff or any of that stuff that didn't make sense on Raw and SmackDown because that may be Vince. I'm going to focus on the stuff that did because I know that's Triple H. And that's what they need to do. But they don't do that. They don't do that. And you know why? Because it's all about the views. It's all about the algorithm. It's all about the attention. The more they come out and say, oh, Vince is in charge, and oh, I told you so, and oh, it was, and and just say all that stuff that, basically puts the blame on Vince, they know it's going to get people watching. It's going to get people watching instead of manning up and saying, you know what, guys, I might be wrong about it, but hey, from what I can tell, it looks like Vince may have had to say, maybe I'm wrong, we'll see what happens. Instead of waiting for maybe some kind of clarification of Vince being involved in whatever segments from the previous night, we do not know whether or not he was fully involved. Again, the reason they do this is because they want to send the message to Ari Emanuel. That message is, Ari, listen up. This is all the wrestling fans that hate Vince McMahon. We are asking you right now, hashtag fire Vince, get him out of our life, get him away from wrestling, he is no good, bye-bye. That's what they want. Or what they want is Vince McMahon to resign, go away, maybe turn himself into the authorities, serve the rest of his life in jail, and they'll be like, and then maybe if he ever gets out before maybe passing, they could be like, okay, Vince, we forgive you now. Now you've learned your lesson. Don't ever mess with us and don't ever do the wrong things anymore. It's one of those situations to where they are not going to stop until Vince is out of wrestling entirely. They are not going to stop until Vince is out of wrestling entirely. And you know that to be a fact, and I know that to be a fact. And, what's crazy is even they know that's a fact. And just doing this video, I know you're thinking, man, he sounds like he's rambling and everything going all over the place. That's how crazy this is sometimes. That's how crazy this is sometimes. The fact that it only takes reports saying that Vince is involved, slightly. That he'll make a creative change here and there if he sees fit. All it takes is that kind of stuff to basically trigger them, to basically, to basically set them off, because of the fact that they don't want Vince around. And like I said, I don't blame them. And I know altogether we don't blame them. But as long as the show is satisfactory, like I said, a grade, like I said, you're taking a test and the passing grade is a 60 or to 100, as long as the show is passable between, let's say, 75% to 100, that should be good enough. That should be satisfactory, in my opinion. But yeah, even the slightest news of Vince McMahon being involved creatively sets these folks off. But what are your thoughts? Let me know down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere, guys. Love to hear from each and every one of you your thoughts on it. And until next time, I will talk to you all later.